Beware the Reagan Trap. Now, they're laying a trap for Ron Paul, and part of that trap is being laid by Jeffrey Lord at the American Spectator in his latest at Political Hay, Santorum's Moment, the Reagan Library Debate. Now, Mr. Lord has been writing about the Ron Paul movement, ascension, for quite some time, but his articles, they're good. Nothing against Mr. Lord. Obviously, people have some problems with some of the conclusions that he draws, and rightfully so in some areas. But this is an attempt to try and marginalize anyone that stands a chance of upsetting the two-horse cart, which is what they want to make this race all about. They want to make it Mitt Romney and Rick Perry. That's who they want it to be. They want it to be defined early, like a boxing promoter. They want to be able to get the pugilist identified, the venue determined, and then they can start to hype the fight, which is what they're attempting to do. I was watching Fox last night, much to my dismay. I was watching Greta Van Sidemouth, and she was interviewing the pasty doughboy himself, Karl Rove, the architect of the biggest political ass-kicking in the last quarter century, where they lost the White House, the House, and the Senate, which is kind of why they lost me, too, in the Republican Party, because I couldn't take the Republican Party anymore. I left on air, 5-6 years ago. Just couldn't take them anymore. And I was a Republican nominee for Congress in California's then 24th District back in 2000. So I had an investment in the Republican Party. But the Republican Party that I was running with, for, on behalf of, wanted to be a part of, was the party that I no longer wanted to be a part of, because the party left the party a long time ago. Now, what we're seeing is an attempt to install Rick Perry as the Republican nominee. That's what's happening right now. They've decided, the moneymakers, the kingmakers, they've all gotten behind the scenes and said, who do we want people to supposedly think they have a choice to vote for? And they've decided it's Rick Perry versus Mitt Romney. Now, Rick Perry's a fraud. Oh, what? Did he just say Rick Perry's a fraud? Yeah, Rick Perry's a fraud. Because Rick Perry is pro-amnesty. He's pro-in-state tuition for illegals. He supported gay marriage in New York, only to change his position because he got a little heat when he decided to throw his ring in the presidential race. His hat in the ring, excuse me. The hat's a little bigger in Texas than the ring, depending upon what wife you're marrying. Rick Perry is not the real deal. But Rick Perry has a lot of big business connections. Rick Perry is a status quoer. Rick Perry is a part of the problem. Part of the problem that we have that supposedly he's going to help to solve. Rick Perry is big business at any cost, at any expense, any deal that can get done. In-state tuition for illegals? Really? Which is a precursor to the DREAM Act, which is a precursor to amnesty? Rick Perry, who was Al Gore's campaign chair in the state of Texas in 1988? Really? That's the guy that all of a sudden, well, that was then and this is now. Changed my mind. Now, Jeffrey Lord, in his piece at the American Spectator, says, tonight is Rick Santorum's moment. Really? So while Jeffrey Lord is taking the time to diss Ron Paul, he's propping up Rick Santorum, who's a social issue suck-up. The only reason Rick Santorum is in the race is because he wants to raise his speaker fees and he wants to sell whatever book he's currently writing. Or he wants to get back on Fox, the fair and balanced, bucket-carrying Republican suck-up network, so he can raise his quote there. Now, if you remember, social issue suck-up Rick Santorum sucked up to Arlen Specter over Pat Toomey back in 2004, back when Arlen Specter was a Republican. Santorum was asked why he supported the centrist, that's kind to Specter, over the more conservative Toomey. And that question that was asked of him got a standing ovation from the 3,500 attendees. Not his answer, the question. Why would you endorse Arlen Specter over the more conservative Pat Toomey in the 2004 Senate primary? He said, during that time, I prayed about it a lot. What I've said repeatedly is that we all make mistakes. We all fail. We all fail. They say Santorum explained that as a well-known opponent of abortion rights, he was concerned about Supreme Court vacancies that were coming up, and he wanted to make sure that the next justices opposed abortion rights. In exchange for his endorsement, Santorum said he extracted a commitment from Arlen Specter. A commitment from Arlen Specter? Really? Are you kidding me? Have you ever tried to get Mercury to stay in one form? Specter, who supports abortion rights, to vote for whoever then President Bush nominated to the court. He said, and now look what we have. Justice Roberts and Alito. And Santorum said this, quote, you can question my judgment, and you have every right to do so, but please don't question my intention to do what's right for those little babies. Are you serious? That's Rick Santorum. That guy is getting ink from Jeffrey Lord at the American Spectator. That guy's a paid contributor at Fox, or was, and Ron Paul can't get the light of day at Fox with that social issue suck-up Santorum using those little babies to try and explain his faux pas of endorsing Arlen Specter over Pat Toomey. Now, Rick Perry is Arlen Specter with cowboy boots. That's all he is. He will change and morph into, he's a shapeshifter. He's a shapeshifter, position shifter to whatever benefits Governor Goodhair and whoever the benefactors are that are trying to install him as the Republican nominee. Oh, by the way, they interviewed Arlen Specter. He denied Santorum's account that Specter assured him he would vote for Bush's Supreme Court nominees in exchange for Santorum's endorsement. Specter said, quote, I never made any promise to Senator Santorum. I would never make a promise on a vote like that under any circumstances. So apparently, Santorum can just say it, make it up, change it. Rick Perry can be pro-choice, pro-in-state tuition for illegals, took $6 billion of stimulus money, behind the DREAM Act, behind amnesty, and behind Al Gore in 1988. Oh, that's right. That's back when Perry was a Democrat. And Karl Rove on Greta Van Sidemouth was talking about, hey, I know Rick Perry. I was one of the guys in the room that convinced him that he should become a Republican, and he'd have a long and storied political career if he just became a Republican. So I guess you can just become anything you want to become, and it's becoming of whatever political party figures that they can put their next puppet in there so they can get whatever they want, which is the perpetuation of what we have now, which isn't working. Ron Paul, he gets nothing. He gets nothing. Rick Perry is not consistent. Mitt Romney is not consistent. Rick Santorum is not consistent. Newt Gingrich is not anything. He's just a big, fat loser blowhard. Michelle Bachmann's about as nutty as they come, which is, I find, kind of endearing. Sarah Palin is soundbite Sarah. She's got no absolutely anything to bring to the table, except maybe trying to manipulate herself into being the official head of the Tea Party movement, which is the death of the Tea Party movement, if Sarah Palin gets on board. But who's the one who's been consistent on the stage? Who's the one who left the Republican Party because the Republican Party left him? Ron Paul. You would think that this would be what Fox would be all over. You would think it'd be all about principles and values and the American spirit. And Ron Paul said, I'm done. I'm done. Because here's what he said back in 1987 when he quit the Republican Party and went after Ronald Reagan, the sitting president. He said, as a lifelong Republican, it saddens me to have to write this letter. My parents believed in the Republican Party and its free enterprise philosophy, and that's the way I was brought up. At age 21 in 1956, I cast my first vote for Ike and the entire Republican slate. Since then, however, I've gradually and steadily grown weary of the Republican Party's efforts to reduce the size of the federal government. Since then, Ronald Reagan and the Republican Party have given us skyrocketing deficits, astoundingly a doubled national debt. How is that the party of balanced budgets with control of the House, White House, and the Senate? Accumulated red ink greater than all previous administrations put together. Tip O'Neill, part of the problem, cannot alone be blamed. I want to totally disassociate myself from the policies that have given us unprecedented deficits, massive monetary inflation, indiscriminate military spending, an irrational and unconstitutional foreign policy, zooming foreign aid, the exaltation of international banking, and the attack on our personal liberties and privacy. I conclude that one must look to other avenues if a successful effort is ever to be achieved in reversing America's direction. I therefore resign my membership in the Republican Party and enclose my membership card. Ron Paul, 1987. Now, what kind of problems are we facing here in 2010, 2011, 2012? What has the Republican Party done? Under George Bush, they doubled the national debt from $5 to $10 trillion, running as a fiscal conservative. Big government, big spending. What problems did they solve with the doubling of the national debt? Social Security shored up? Nope. Medicare, Medicaid? Nope. Secure borders? Nope. What do we got? Smarter kids? Nope. What do we got? We got more debt. We got more military-industrial complex. We got more government-industrial complex. We got more education-industrial complex. We've gone from combat to commerce. We've got our troops in every and any available place around the world where we don't kill people and blow stuff up, bad people, the people we want to kill. We don't do that. The money's in the medicine, folks. It's not in the cure. The money's in the contracting, not in winning the wars. The only person who's been consistent that's going to be on the stage tonight is Ron Paul. It'll be interesting to see if the consistency of Fox News continues to give him a pass. It'll be interesting to see if the bait is going to be taken by Ron Paul with regard to Jeffrey Lord's Reagan Library debate, Santorum's moment, whether or not Ron Paul is going to have the guts or the gravitas, I guess as Mr. Lord would say, to take on Ronald Reagan on his own turf. And let me tell you something. If I know anything about Ronald Reagan would want Ron Paul to do exactly that.
Jerry Doyle.
The stage is set for coverage in an ongoing battle between Ron Paul and the man he long ago spurned, Ronald Reagan, writes Mr. Lord. Stay tuned. He also says, keep your eye on Rick Santorum. I would say the same back to you, Mr. Lord. Rick Santorum is a phony and a social issue suck-up who backed Arlen Specter, who's Rick Perry with cowboy boots. Stick with me.
The Jerry Doyle Show.